Okay, hello. Hi, now I've said it in other presentations and I'll say it again at the beginning of this one. The felon will try to micromanage the country into ruin as he has done with companies he has been associated with in his past adult life. And in this presentation, you will see a retired Navy commander, Commander Jones, talk about the battleship proposed by the felon. As you listen to Commander Jones address the subject, remember that naval officers, especially at the commander level and above, are knowledgeable in naval warfare. They are experts in what the Navy needs to run a successful mission and how to best utilize fleet resources available in different situations. Another fact is the felon is truly ignorant in that subject area. He is far too arrogant and does not know how to listen to good objective advice. Please watch the rest of this video.
Many hypersonic weapons, state-of-the-art electric railguns, and even the high-powered lasers that you've been starting to read about.
Trump said the goal is to build up to 25 battleships, in part to inspire fear in America's enemies all over the world. Trump says the Navy will lead the project and that he will be involved in consulting.
See, it's just a vanity project. You see the emblem there? He just wants to have his picture all over the place.
A very aesthetic person.
The Navy says the cost of the ships has not been nailed down, but a retired admiral says the first ship could top $10 billion to build, and says the large ships are not what the Navy needs to combat Chinese threats at sea.
Hello, Bobby Jones here from Midas Touch and Ballard Media Networks. Let's talk about one of the most revealing national security announcements we've heard in a long time. Donald Trump has announced plans to build a new class of U.S. Navy battleships, named after himself. Not after states, not after American heroes, not after famous important battles, but after him. And while many may think this is a very patriotic thing for the President of the United States to do, it's actually something far more dangerous. It reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how modern naval warfare works, combined with raw, unmitigated ego. As a retired naval officer, let me be clear. This idea does not make America or its allies safer. It makes us weaker. In this video, I'll try to cut through the high-level strategic analysis that you may find elsewhere and give you very simple reasons as to why this is such a bad idea. Reason number one, battleships are relics of the past. Battleships had their moment. That moment ended nearly 80 years ago at the end of World War II. The battleship was designed for a world where naval combatants happened to be within visual range of each other, big guns decided battles, and armor could actually protect the ship. That world no longer exists. The last U.S. battleships, the Iowa class, were retired in the early 1990s for one very simple reason. They were no longer survivable. Modern warfare isn't about who has the thickest steel. It's about sensors, networks, missiles, range, and stealth. Today, a massive surface ship isn't a symbol of power. It's looked at as a target, and it's a very expensive target. As a matter of fact, these battleships that are being proposed
and it's a huge target. A small drone can really zero in on a huge battleship.
Be around $5 billion a piece. Can't get much more expensive in modern warfare than that. The second reason that this is not a good idea is very simple. Big ships lose in the missile age. Modern anti-ship weapons don't care how powerful your ship looks. As a matter of fact, China and Russia field long-range cruise missiles, hypersonic weapons, ballistic anti-ship missiles, and submarines designed specifically to hunt large surface targets. A 30 to 40,000 ton battleship lights up enemy sensors like a stadium at night. You can't hide it. It can't maneuver as fast as you need it to. And you can't defend it against saturation attacks from multiple missiles at the same time. Or if you can, it's extremely difficult. The armor that battleships are known for will not protect them against these hypersonic super missiles that you see today, nor against a swarm coordinated attack. These various platforms will be the first to die in a complete naval maritime saturated battle. So this is why you don't see anybody creating these battleships anymore. Not the United States, not NATO, not even China or Russia. Which leads to reason number 3, and that is ego is driving the decision. This is where things really get truly alarming. The proposal is not coming from the Navy. It's not being requested from United States combatant commanders. It's not even coming from defense strategists. It's coming from President Trump's personal taste and ego. Trump has reportedly complained about the design of modern U.S. Navy warships, calling them ugly. He dislikes stealth designs because he does not like the angles. He prefers old school steel ships that look tough. Unfortunately, that's not a strategy. That's an aesthetic. Naval vessels are designed to survive, period, not to impress a president's eye. And naming a class of warships after yourself while in office is unprecedented in American history. It turns the U.S. military into a vanity project, not a fighting force. So national security decisions driven by personal legacy are how nations actually decline. Another reason why this is so disturbing is it directly undermines distributed lethality. So if you've seen Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Defense, talk, he loves talking about lethality. Well, the future of naval warfare is distributed lethality. That means smaller platforms, spread out firepower, networks that are censored and put together, and redundancy in those systems, and the resiliency to survive certain hits from certain weapons. Instead of putting all of your weapons into one giant ship like President Trump wants to do, you instead distribute them across various platforms: destroyers, frigates, submarines, unmanned sensors, unmanned surface vessels, unmanned below surface vessels, submarines. You spread the lethality so you can spread your enemies thin and make them cover a larger area instead of knocking out the majority of your force in one limited area. This forces your enemy to track dozens of targets, waste missiles, and literally try to cover a surface area that it won't be able to cover. When you create battleships, the exact opposite effect happens. It concentrates risk. They invite first strikes. They become very delicious looking targets to many weapon systems. And now those forces that should be spread out have to defend that one capital ship. What's fascinating to me is another reason that I'm going to mention here. The U.S. Navy already tried doing this. In the beginning of the 21st century, they came up with the Zumwalt class destroyer, which was going to be basically a battleship type level platform, and spent billions, over $7 billion per ship. It used experimental weapons. It had massive cost overruns. But at the end of the day, it had limited operational value. And so the Navy scrapped the program, because everything that I mentioned earlier was manifested in the Zumwalt class destroyer. But that wouldn't even work for what President Trump wants because of the angles and the overall aesthetic of the ship. So the lesson learned, and now I guess has been forgotten by the Department of Defense, is when you try to use big and create big weapons with experimental technology that is not proven, chances are you're not going to get what you bargained for. And here we are about to repeat the same mistakes again. Now, despite all of those reasons, let me be very blunt. A fleet built to flatter one man's legacy is a fleet that is destined to fail. A fleet built to flatter one man's legacy weakens deterrence, it distracts from real threats, and it signals incompetence to adversaries. China and Russia do not fear a battleship. What they fear are U.S. submarines, carrier air wings, network missile forces, and here's the key piece: allied forces integration across the maritime domain. What President Trump wants to do is basically cut America off from all of that, create a big ship that's supposed to be intimidating, and then just have basically a classic World War II battle. Unfortunately, the real world is not the movies. And unfortunately, you have people who are way smarter than me who say that is not how warfare is going to be fought in the second part of the 21st century. The United States Navy does not need monuments to egos. What they need are ships that are survivable, adaptable, and can be distributed for maximum lethality across the maritime domain. Battleships are not named after presidents. They are not named after people still in office. But most importantly, this pet project, this vanity project, is distracting from a comprehensive naval strategy that will help not only America, but its allies all across the world. Hopefully, and I do mean hopefully, someone close to the president will stop him from single-handedly trying to jack up further the United States Navy and its proud.
But that idiot, he just doesn't know how to take good objective advice. Okay, thank you for watching. And one note I want to point out to you is, in the comments section, there is a link to a video that I made that demonstrates how you can find technology that cures early stage prostate cancer without surgery, hospital stay, or harmful side effects. That technology is the CyberKnife, and it cured me in 2007 as I stopped by for treatments on my way to work over a 5-day period. And by following the steps I demonstrate in that video, you can find a facility or hospital closest to you, wherever you are in the country. Again, thank you for watching.